Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening, and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the deep, deep South. You know, our prayers go out to those that are experiencing really bad weather. A lot of lives have been lost as these storms sweep throughout the country. We're blessed in Mississippi to have been spared once again from weather that has been devastating to so many others. We're grateful for that. Now, Mississippi is an interesting place. You know, we have a state that's greater than 40% African American. I live in a city of Jackson, the capital city of Mississippi, that's got a population of 85% plus African American. At one point in time during slavery, there were more slaves in Mississippi than there were Europeans. My co-host has often said that slavery could have been ended in 90 days had African Americans had the willpower and could have come together to plot a correct strategy to overturn slavery and end it, but we didn't. And because we didn't overturn it then and didn't stop it then, there are many who think that we are dealing with a resurgence of racist individuals and people, racist policies that are continuing trying to take the clock backwards. As evidenced, many of you out there are watching the news every day, and Jackson, Mississippi stays on the national news more than any other city in America, second only to Chicago. And so you see, we stay on the national news because we're in a constant struggle and a battle trying to give African Americans an opportunity to demonstrate that they can lead, that they in fact have the skill sets and the abilities to build Jackson into a #1 first-class city. We have the same opportunity that Atlanta had. Actually, we had a head start. And so we know we can do it, but we also realize that we're living and operating in a state that is deep, deep red. The Jackson City is Democratic-led people. The state of Mississippi are heavily Republican-thinking people. And so we have this dichotomy. We have this constant tug of war to see how can we survive and get along in the same fishbowl. It's difficult because we are different. I don't know why or how we became so different, but I've noticed that we are in fact different. And there are those all across this country that just simply do not hold African Americans in high esteem. Many don't believe that they're capable of leading, like our governor of the state of Mississippi has already said publicly that we are incompetent without the ability to lead. And so we are just different. You know, I challenge them to say that African Americans are incapable and that they are incompetent and cannot lead when I look back on the tremendous things that we have accomplished. I have to go all the way back to the very beginning of time when African Americans created the first civilization and the marvelous things that we were able to do. Now, I realize that we have some trouble. Part of that trouble was created with the absolute destruction of the family unit inside of the African American community. When you destroy the family unit, you destroy the legacy and the history. You destroy the people that are encouraging you to overcome and stay in school and study hard. You just have no foundation from which to work from. And if you don't have a foundation, you're constantly sinking and trying to pull yourself up. It's much like being in quicksand. You know, the strategy for yourself to survive being in quicksand is to just be still so you won't go down so fast. And maybe somebody will come by and see you and pull you out, because you know there's no way possible for you to get out yourself. And so we find ourselves much like that in Jackson, Mississippi, and other parts of this country. And we're going to talk about that this evening and in the future evenings to come. You see, we got to find out exactly what the problem is so that we can develop a comprehensive plan to defeat whatever it is that's keeping African Americans down and backwards and without hope and full of despair. Now, my guest needs no introduction. He's not a guest. He's my co-host. And he's a man amongst men. He was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta. Not many of you out there in the world know what a plantation is. You have no idea what that was like. And our children of today clearly don't have any idea what it was like to be born on a plantation and to struggle for survival. And so Dr. Eldridge Henderson, a renowned orator, a sought-after speaker all over the world. If you need someone to speak in your churches and your schools and your community organizations, he is your man. And I'm just going to say, welcome, Dr. Henderson. It's good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you, Mr. Socrates. I'm pleased to be here again, and I hope we have additional opportunities through 2023, because we're going to need to talk to the people and provide solutions to their problems that they can start addressing in 30, 60, or 90 days.
Well, we got a lot of problems. And so I was talking about a few of those. It seems to me that African Americans all over the country are slowly declining in a moment of decline that we peaked out, and now it seems as if we are falling backwards. How do you observe that?
Well, I observe it very clearly, just as you stated. And I want you to understand, though, we are falling backward because we are not moving forward. Black people in America, and especially in the southern states, are looking at institutions versus individuals. We have a history of institutional racism, and that is always started by individuals, governors, lieutenant governors, captains of industry, individuals in the community that are anti-black, always individuals. So we go and attack the individuals, talk about the Constitution, talk about the governor, instead of identifying the person that's currently doing what they are doing that blacks don't like. And we know that if you zero in on the individual versus the institution, you don't go talking about what the legislators are doing. You look at the rulers in the legislature, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, and the head of individual committees. That's who you deal with, individuals with groups of 3, 5, or 7. Go to those people individually and say, this is what you are doing to the people of Mississippi. This is unconstitutional. we want to let you know we don't agree with what you're doing. We expect you to do the following, and we're not going to take forever to get it done, or we're going to take these actions. And you have to have all this done very clearly in writing and let them know that this is your agenda. And if you look at the last page, you're going to see the outcome if this is not addressed in an appropriate time. And you don't say the appropriate time unless you give a timeline. If you don't have a timeline, it's like that old civil rights stuff in the school integration thing, talking about we're going to do this with all deliberate speed. Doesn't mean a thing. That's a constitutional snag that you can throw out to have something going on forever, just the way you want it to be. Now that's one way to solve these problems historically throughout the world. Attack the individual with a positive confrontation at first and demand the problem has to be resolved in my favor since I am alleged to be a citizen and I have constitutional rights and human rights just as you.
So,
just that simple.
So you're of the opinion that one can have a civil conversation with your adversaries and come to some meaningful position?
Of course, history shows it. Even the Bible shows it. When Jesus and the devil were both in heaven, he had a confrontation with the devil. And those good King James people that love the King James Version ought to read that and look how Jesus resolved his problems with the devil.
I didn't know that he resolved any problems with the devil.
He sure did. He kicked him out of heaven, told him he's going to go to what we call today as hell, and you rule hell and I'm going to rule heaven.
So he gave him a territory.
He gave him a territory. It was sort of like a reparation.
So even the devil got a territory, but blacks get nothing.
Get nothing because they don't demand anything other than begging the oppressor, criticizing the oppressor, and not telling that oppressor what they demand.
So let me ask you this. The national news has portrayed the governor of Mississippi and the mayor of Jackson at opposite ends. The polarization is real. There's no communication, no discussion, no combined strategies to move Jackson and the state of Mississippi forward. How, if you were mayor, how would you approach the governor?
Well, I would do just what I said. I would get me a team together, go and talk to the governor first. Then I would talk to the leadership team in the legislature, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker. That's number two. I believe in 3 opportunities. And the third opportunity, I would get the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and all the department heads in the legislature with a group of 3, 9, 10. The more you talk to, the larger your delegation is, and go to those folks and let them know we got to have change in Mississippi, change in the South, change in the nation, change in the world that's going to favor all humans and as human beings. Just that simple.
Wow, you heard it here from Dr. Henderson. He thinks and he articulates that there is a possibility that you could put together the type of team and a group to go and meet with what has traditionally been your adversaries and come to a position that is amiable to both sides. I don't know. I think that Mississippi has got a history of being an oppressive state, and they've never been in a position to negotiate, specifically with the Choctaw Indians, who are no longer here, got marched off to Oklahoma, and they've never been in a position to negotiate with African Americans. And so, Dr. Henderson, your strategy, there are some skeptics out here that policy is more in line with Martin Luther King than Malcolm X.
Well, I don't think so. The white power structure throughout the South and throughout the nation had more real respect for Malcolm X than they did Martin Luther King.
Really?
They even feared him more than they feared Martin Luther King. And when Martin Luther King started talking like Malcolm X, they say, we can't have this. That boy is getting to be radical. We're going to have to give him his number 10. We're going to have to take care of him. We're going to have to assassinate him. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Now, if they had gotten together 10 years earlier, America wouldn't be the America we know today.
If Malcolm and Martin had come together.
That's right.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Coming together in the African-American community is not an easy task.
Very difficult.
Because your family unit was broken down, and you've espoused on this, and you've articulated that the tragedy and the horrific crimes that occurred during the period of slavery and the importation into America and the selling and the trading of African-Americans and breaking down the family unit, you've articulated that was some terrible times.
Most certainly.
And so blacks find themselves in a position where it's hard to get along. Malcolm couldn't get along with Martin, and Du Bois couldn't get along with Booker T. And so division in our society and our race seems to be just permeating the whole environment.
Well, one of the problems they had during both periods that you mentioned, most of the black leaders discussed their issues in the newspaper, in conferences, in churches, talking as individuals, saying, I'm representing this movement. But they very seldom get together behind closed doors in a private setting with their so-called black opponents that's thinking another way. And if they do meet with them, they are going to go to a white hotel or a white conference center with white people there, recording and taking all the information, and then they have a special board meeting in the same place that's supposed to be private, and all that information is recorded and used against them. So there's nothing the black man can do when you work with your adversaries and work in his territory. You have to go to your own territory, your own buildings, your own institutions, and plan your strategies.
So is it the divide in the African-American community? We talked about it from a historical perspective, but it's more evident today than ever before. Let's go into Jackson, Mississippi. Your city council in Jackson, Mississippi, and the administration, the mayor's office, which runs the executive branch, is completely at odds with the council on the legislative branch, and there doesn't seem to be any way to come together.
Well, that appears to be a fact, but the thing is, that group only represents about 30% of the registered voters in Hinds County and in the Jackson area. So 70% of the problems that we have are not being addressed with 70% of the people in Hinds County and Jackson. So that group is insignificant. If the people would organize, starting with the leaders like you and others that's not in politics, organize a new voting campaign, at least 75% of the current elected and appointed people in Jackson, Mississippi, and Hinds County can be kicked out of office at the next election. At least 75%.
Well, kicking the current people out of office, will that improve your situation? I don't see where there is any great collaboration going on anywhere in the community. So when you remove one from the office, you put another one in with the same mentality, what changes?
Well, it will change if you train and work with the people you replace your opponents with, the ones that's not doing what you're supposed to do. See, that's the problem. We have to train our own leaders, starting as teenagers, as college students, as independent small business people that's out here in the world working, trying to raise a family. They are the ones we have to recruit and put them in positions of responsibility.
And when you say we have to train, you obviously have some idea of who represents we that can command the attention of those that need to be trained.
That's right.
You see, I think there are more individuals like you and me that are willing to share your tremendous knowledge and experience on how things work and what the pitfalls are if you had somebody that would listen. But many times there's nobody there for you to even share it with.
Well, that is a fact. There is a fact to consider. But the thing is, I don't like to reveal too much, but I always believe that if you want to win a race, you have to get started. And you have to start where you are. So there are certain people that are planning and working with small groups that are training individuals in small groups.
Oh, that's occurring now?
That's right.
In Jackson, Mississippi?
In Jackson and in Hinds County and in other parts of the state of Mississippi in the South. And a lot of these people are not looking for a lot of publicity. It is like a hidden tornado behind the Ural Mountains, or a storm building, gaining force. And one day it's going to come over that mountain, and it's going to be revealed, and it's going to be so strong until nothing you can do but run away and holler and squall for fear that I hope I'm not going to be in my last days, because this is a totally new storm that's coming in my midst.
Well, we're going to have to develop this, and as my friend Sherry Jones would say, we're going to have to unpack this a little bit more. Dr. Henderson seems to think that there's some training going on over behind the mountains, and that pretty soon we're going to see the approach of a new man, new woman that is ready to move this city, this state, this county, this nation forward. We're getting ready to go to a station break. We're going to be right back, and we're going to continue this conversation with Dr. Henderson. But you stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, this program is being seen all over the world in over 139 countries. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family and send us some stars. Let us know and support us with stars and donation. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the program. If you're watching us on Roku TV, you have to go to the Apple Store, download the app, and you can find us there on Roku TV. But the most significant thing about what we do here at We Believe Digital is that we have our very own platform, like YouTube, like Netflix, like Roku, like Facebook. We have our own platform. It's WeBelieveDigital.com. Check it out. You'll find that we have all the interesting programs and shows that you would ever want to see. We have over 8 to 10 categories that we have channels underneath that individuals that support us have their own channel. And all of their information is archived in their channels for eternity. And it's important that we capture and archive and store the information. There are over 2,000 videos in our library right now that we have come through this particular platform that's full of interesting information about what's going on in the world. So WeBelieveDigital.com, is very, very unique. Let's just take, for example, on Sunday mornings. on Sunday mornings at WeBelieveDigital.com. If you go to the category of inspiration, you can then go down and you'll see the channels underneath that category. You'll see Bishop Ronnie Crudup there with New Horizon Church. You'll see Kingdom Prayers there, where they have daily prayers that they come in the studio and they reach out to folk all over the world. Now, it's tremendously important because at WeBelieveDigital.com, you can have your own channel for your own church. We could have 50 channels down there in that category. And the unique thing is that all of those channels can go live at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. That's a very different approach that you can find in traditional media, where on 8 o'clock you can only get Joel Osteen or some other high-powered preacher that could afford that media. But We Believe Digital will allow you, the smallest individual, to have your programs go live at 8 o'clock simultaneously. So I could toggle back between New Horizon Church and New Jerusalem Church and Kingdom Prayers, and I can look at all of that on Sunday morning during the same 8 o'clock hour. That's WeBelieveDigital.com. We're uniquely different. Also, one of the categories down there is We Believe Radio. That's right, We Believe Radio. You can click on We Believe Radio and you can listen to music 24 hours a day. Music that you haven't heard in a while. You know, the songs that we hear in Jackson, Mississippi are different from the songs that they hear in Los Angeles. So if you're in California and you're homesick and you haven't been able to get back down south for a while, tune in to We Believe Radio. Go to WeBelieveDigital.com, scroll down to We Believe Radio, and listen all night long. So We Believe Digital Broadcasting Studio is tremendously different than other platforms, and we need your support. You can also go to the marketplace, and you'll see there are things that we have to sell. One of the things there that we're promoting is Earth Blend Coffee. Now, this is the finest brand of coffee that you can buy in that price range. It's a great cup of coffee. It's brewed by African Americans, owned by African Americans, and if black folk all over the world would drink that coffee, we would create a black Starbucks. All you have to do is go to WeBelieveDigital.com, scroll down to the marketplace, scroll down to Earth Blend Coffee, go online, order the coffee, and it'll ship out to you the next day. It's just that simple. We have to learn to support one another. We have to make our dollars stay in our community. And African Americans have to provide you with something that is unique and something that you need that you can support. Now, African Americans own lots of things. Now, lots of things we don't own that we should. One is a car dealership right here in Jackson, Mississippi, where it's the largest city in Jackson, Mississippi, and we don't have an African-American-owned car dealership anywhere in the city, probably nowhere in the state, and probably nowhere in the southern region. And that's shameful. That's despicable. That's an example of what we call institutionalized racism and redlining and things of that nature that continue to go on every day. And we got to call that out here at We Believe Digital, because we believe we can make a difference. We believe that if Mississippi and the rest of the world would celebrate its diversity in America and not be afraid of it, you got to not be afraid of it. We understand that America is browning every day. We get that. We understand that's a problem, and the Hispanics are coming across the border each and every day, and it's frightening everybody. And so we have groups that spring up like the Proud Boys that invaded the Capitol in Washington, D.C. back in January the 6th. In an attempt to overthrow the government because they were afraid they were losing their country. Now, you got to understand that this is some serious stuff that we're talking about. And when they mean they're losing their country, that means that democracy won't work much longer. One man, one vote cannot continue to work for Europeans in a country where they're becoming the minority. So something has got to give. And you got to know that the plans are being made to fix that situation right now today. Now, Jackson, Mississippi, and the state of Mississippi just happen to be on the front line on demonstrating to you how it can be fixed. So what the Mississippi has done and the governor has done, they and the legislature have done, they have instituted and created new laws that will allow them to take over the assets of a predominantly African-American city like Jackson and rule the assets themselves. So what good does it do to vote for a mayor if, in fact, you took all of the power that the office had by legislatively? You took his airport, you took his water, you took his street money for his streets, roads, and bridges. You took everything from him. And you just write it into law that we're going to regionalize this. That means white folk will run it even though they were not elected. White folk appointed judges in Jackson, Mississippi. We elect judges, but what good does it do for us to elect judges if you're going to turn around and appoint your own judges and create your own court? It reminds me of the day and time when people just came up missing. You know, you go to a kangaroo court, nobody knew you were going, and you never came back. Well, you don't know what happened to you. You're just missing. And those days are days full of trouble, and we're facing them once again. So we got some issues in Mississippi, but we believe Digital Broadcasting Studio is one of those platforms that's here for you to use. You can come in and have your own show and rent this space in the studio in here. We can cut all of your commercials. We can handle your social media for you. There's nothing that we can't do as a media company. In this complex, we have the print versions with newspapers that's over 23 years old in the Mississippi Link newspaper. We have the internet radio station here for you. We have the broadcast studio for you. We have the podcast studio here for you. And so there's nothing that you might need in the way of a media outlet than we can't provide right here. Now, yes, we need to be an advertising agency as well. I get that. And maybe we will become that when one of you out there says, look, I think I am going to help them over at We Believe Digital. I see what they're trying to do. I think I'm going to lend a hand to the plow. I think if we could do this, we could control the narrative better, and our people would be better informed, and our representation would improve. I think I must hurry down to Jackson, Mississippi, and help these folk out. I have years and years of experience in TV and radio and broadcast. I'm almost at retirement age. I gotta get out of Chicago and Denver because it's too cold. I gotta get out of California. There's too many earthquakes going on. It's getting too hot in Arizona. You know you gotta move, and you can't all go to Florida. So come on down to Jackson, Mississippi, and help us build this studio and this concept out. And let's have our own major media outlet in We Believe Digital. Now, my guest, my co-host, Dr. Eldridge Henderson, has articulated some plans and strategies that he believes will help the African Americans fight their way through this moment of oppression, this decline that we're facing. We have fewer businesses. We have fewer people that are graduating from high school. We have our education system is under attack. Legislatively, they created charter schools, which undermine the credibility of public schools. Everything you see is under attack, and it's all because of the browning of America. And you better get that. The reason that we spend billions of dollars over in Ukraine? Because the people in Ukraine look just like the people that are running the country in America. We're not spending no billions of dollars over in Sierra Leone, and we're certainly not spending that in Nigeria. And Africa has got more precious minerals than Ukraine will ever have. So it's not even about the resources. If it was about the resources, we ought to be investing billions in Africa. But we're not. And we're not because Africa is the home of black people. And yes, it's being invaded as we speak right now today. My co-host has said that here in America, that if we don't change things, we're going to be speaking Chinese. I don't agree with that, but that's his position. And so, we got to have solutions to the things I'm talking about. Dr. Henderson.
Yes, sir, Mr.
You know, I've
Secretary.
gone on and on, and I've talked on and on about problems and the issues, but people need some leadership. You need to stand up, offer yourself up to be governor of the state of Mississippi at a minimum. What say you?
Well, that's something to consider with proper support from folks like you and others that want to change what we call the status quo. There are a lot of people that will get into public affairs through an elected or appointed position if they had specific support. You don't need a lot of support, but you need focused support from people that have the means to make things happen. It's not about money all the time, Mr. Socrates. When you're making an effort to work for human rights and change things that's going to be positive for all the people, you have to have money, of course, but you need a legal team. You need a defense team. You need a major communication team. You need 3, 5, 7 in each one of those categories. You have to have a negotiation team, 3, 5, 7, or 10 men and women that can go to the opponents and talk to them in a serious professional manner and negotiate and let them know what both sides of the coin has to offer. And in the end, you have to say, we are going to have to decide what's going to happen. We're going to be at the forefront of a confrontation, and we must address these issues in a reasonable time with a specific date.
So, Doc, we got to be at the forefront. And on the other segment, you were talking about the young people that were being trained, that were going to be able to come in and make a difference sometime in the near future. And we hope that's the case. But I don't see that leadership on the horizon. The younger my leadership gets, it seems as if the more tragedy that occurs because they do not understand the struggle and they do not understand the fight that you and I have come through.
Well, I'll give you a good example to show you that these things can change. Just today, I was reading about a young man that moved right through the cycle that I mentioned a few minutes ago. A young man named Leslie Burrell McLemore. When he was in elementary school, he would do a lot of reading and research about black history in his segregated school. He had a chance to integrate a school in his community. He didn't have black history books there. But at that time, when he was at his black school, when he was attending black school, he decided he was going to address the black problems. So he got himself hooked up with the Student Government Association. He finished high school. He attended college at Russ College, I believe, in Mississippi, in Holly Springs. And he got involved in student government and civil rights. He finished there. He went to graduate school. He moved back to Mississippi, got hooked up at Jackson State University, was involved in history and research and civil rights there. Then, as an independent man, as an individual, he pooled his resources with others, and he got elected to a government position in the city of Jackson. And he got up to the point until I think at one time he was the what I call the interim mayor for a while, I believe. So this is an example of what we can do today. So instead of starting in an elementary area, we can now start with the high school students and the college students. And when they get 18 and older, you can start putting these new men and women in positions of responsibility. It can be done in 7 years.
Well, don't you send those kids off to white schools?
Well, you can, but it's not good. But if you got a scholarship at the white school, you go to white school. And you do like the Japanese and others that bring their kids here to America, those big industrial giants. They attend a private school in Madison or in Massachusetts or wherever, and they send their kids at night and on weekends to their own school and train them to keep the language and the customs going. That's what we have to do. So you go where the opportunities are.
Well, that's maybe true, but do you see any white kids going to HBCUs?
Yeah, they're almost 10% of them.
Really?
That's right. It's mandated that, for instance, at Jackson State University, Alcorn, MVSC, they are mandated that at least 10% of the student body could be white. They had it at some of the community colleges. So if you apply as a white student, you can't get an Ole Miss, you can't get in Mississippi State. Any white student with a high school diploma can attend some of these other state universities and get in. They have a affirmative action clause for those students. Most people don't know it, most people don't talk about it, and those that do know about it will not mention it, but you let one show up in application. I used to see those applications years ago.
I had no idea that 10% of the student body at a HBCU could be white.
It could be. And if you don't believe it, you go and look at the record, pull up the websites of these black colleges and universities, not only in Mississippi. You'll be surprised how many white students and non-black students you have at these institutions.
Wow, wow. Now, Doc, you know, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about local stuff. I want to talk about the politicians. We got everybody running for office here in Mississippi. I think we need to share with our viewers and listeners out there a little bit about who's running for what and what their background is and how we see their preparation for the aspiration that they have to serve in that elected position. But before we get to this break, and we were talking about 10% of our population at HBCUs could be white, I thought about Deion Sanders up in Colorado. How do you think he'll do up there?
I think he'll do great. See, when you have a plan, a prioritized corrective action plan with a checklist and a timeline, you usually can't do bad for yourself because you have a timeline, you are prioritized, you have already done your research, you have your infrastructure there, the people that I mentioned, your lawyers, your negotiators, your public relation people, and all you do is give them their margin orders and you go on and reach your goals, and you can do it starting with 30, 60, 90 days, segments. You put that 30, 60, 90 days together, evaluate it with your monitors, then you move to another. And in 2 or 3 years, you could climb all kinds of mountains and get to the top and wave your successful flag, and you won't even make a lot of noise. Other people would be making the noise for you. And you just driving along.
And that's what's happening up at Colorado?
That's exactly right.
Well, there's probably more black people up there now than there has been at any other time in history.
I guarantee you. They're going to be moving there. You're going to have a lot of black presence at the university while the new coach is there. They're going to have a responsibility, and they're not going to be just tokens. They're going to be there in positions of responsibility where they make decisions, where they have the power of the budget, and they can buy and purchase things they need, and they won't be subservient and just as the co-director or the assistant to the assistant.
Will we have any black cheerleaders there, you think?
Well, if he demands some, yeah. They would just automatically get one. But he would probably, or any good coach, that's coaching football or basketball ought to demand that they have an adequate representation of black cheerleaders on the football, basketball team, soccer team, and all the other teams where the black players are. And they need to have black monitors and tutors for the black athlete, and not all these others that's getting with them, making cozy relationships with them. And time they get famous, make some money, they get married and have a child or two and divorce them in 3 to 5 years. That is the strategy, and that's why they get these boys and these famous girls that's good in athletics to these so-called PMIs, and they have a plan with them, and that's what people do. It is like the rich people saying, my son, my daughter has to get married, but we're going to help them find the right person. And they're not going to be looking in the hood. They're not going to be looking in the trailer parks. They're not going to be looking in the low-class suburbs for a mate. Now, people don't like to hear the truth, but that's the way it's done. Kings don't marry commoners unless that has been something going on in the man's or woman's head where they are mentally deranged.
Well, we're going to come back and maybe we're going to talk about Harry a little bit and see how that happened over in England. But
you see what I'm talking about.
We got to go to a station break. You're watching We Believe digital broadcast in the Socrates Garrett live show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. You know, go to our website, webelievedigital.com. Look at all of the categories that we have there on the website on our very own platform. Scroll down to your interest, whether that's sports or inspiration or politics or entertainment or education. Just scroll down, choose the category that you want to view in, and then there'll be channels under there of specific individual shows that you will certainly enjoy as you visit that website. If you're watching us on Facebook, then go ahead on and share this program with your friends and family. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. But most importantly, we're building our own platform, webelievedigital.com. We're not sharecropping over here, and we're not allowing individuals to control the narrative on what we say and do on this particular platform. Now, my co-host, Dr. Eldred Henderson, is a man that has his own show on WMPR radio station on Thursday evenings for 1 hour. I believe that's from 6 to 7. And on Tuesdays from 11 to 11:30, I believe.
That's correct, sir.
And he has his own shows there, and he's one of the most sought-after speakers in this country. You know, if you have engagements with your churches, your schools, your community organizations, and you need a speaker then you need to reach out to Dr. Eldridge Henderson. He'll give you that number in just a moment that he wants you to call. But I can tell you this, he's an individual that is educated and street smart, having lived through the horrors of being born on a plantation, has risen above all of that, and today is a shining example that anything is impossible. Anything is impossible if you just keep pressing forward. Regardless to the insurmountable odds that sometimes seem to be put in your way, you can still achieve. Now, Dr. Henderson.
Yes, sir.
I understand that the president of Jackson State University is on temporary leave. What is going on at Jackson State University? This is 3 presidents you've had there in the less than 10 years, and all 3 of them are in trouble. 2 gone, 1 on temporary leave. What's going on?
Well, the same thing that's been going on during the last 3 administrations that you just mentioned. There's a lot of oversight from the top without input from the alumni at these black universities, and the same at the white ones. The leadership team, which we call the IHL board, the Institution of Higher Learning Board, is like a Putin. They dictate who the president is going to be. They put out the marching orders asking for candidates. They get 20 or 30 applications, call in 2 or 3, and I'm only talking about what I have been reading about through the various newspapers and meetings that I attend, and they get those people, interview 1 or 2, and many times when the president is selected, he or she didn't even apply for the position until the last minute or when they were told to do so, and you're looking for an outsider to come into the institution as the leader, and you end up with an in-house groomed person, one that's being groomed because of his or her ability and his or her ability to follow orders in order to get the job. And you most certainly, if you get orders to take the job, you got to continue to be that way.
So how can you call Jackson State a black school if it's controlled by white folk?
Well, you don't have any black schools. Black colleges and universities don't have a strong monetary base. They get their money from grants. That's come from special interest groups. They get the money from the legislature, and they get money from tuition. Those are the basically 3 areas. And the students are not independent. At most of the black schools, up to 65 and some of them 75% of the students are financially dependent on the government. So they don't have a large thing to say about anything. The staff is there. Most of them are overburdened with debt because they're underpaid. They have bills, homes, mortgages, kids in private and public schools, 2 and 3 cars they have to pay for. Many of them that's been there 10, 15 to 30 years, making less than $100,000. So they can't protest and be serious about it. They most certainly not going to boycott. You're not going to find 50% of the students saying we're going to stay out of class for 3 weeks. You're not going to find 25 or 30% of the faculty and staff saying we're going to boycott classes for 1 week. It's not going to happen because they will have to go and beg for food stamps.
Wow. Now, Dr. Peoples was president of Jackson State University, and he served for 10, 15, 20 years, a long period of time. And now recently we've had 3 presidents in less than 7 years. Can a black person be successful as head of a black school?
Of course.
In Mississippi?
Of course, in any state.
Well, why are we having so many people that are not being successful at Jackson State?
Because you have those people selected without the input of the students, nor the faculty, nor the community leaders. Those people are positioned among the ruling class at the IHL. Now, these are the facts. They decide who these people are. They decide their qualifications. And they have their resumes and their histories, and they're going to put a person in office, and I would do the same thing. That's going to do what I want them to do. That's the way you select your people when you are dictatorial in nature. But if you are constitutional and one that believes in human rights and independent thought, you would then let the people decide who is going to be the person that's going to be the chief leader.
Well, who is the acting interim president?
Well, the information I received, I did hear this today, but I didn't read it anywhere yet. It'll probably be on the news. I understand it's someone named Dr. Anthony. I don't know all the details, and I understand that the current president, the one that is on leave with pay. So that means they are still maneuvering and reviewing some allegations that's been alleged against him to see whether or not they can whitewash some things and put him back in power after they call him in for a conference, or decide whether or not they're going to keep the current interim, or make that third decision where they will give her 3 or 4 months, or maybe 18 months or so, and allege that they're looking for another one, and then groom another one to put in to be the real president.
Well, down here in Mississippi, the mayor is under attack. Now, the president of our largest black institution, I call it a black institution, but it's controlled by white folk at IHL, and I believe the governor appoints all of the board members to IHL. Is that right?
That's about right. Naturally, he's going to consult with 2 or 3 of his major corporate friends, people that contribute to his campaign, and he'll probably do a little consultation with some of his good friends in the Senate and so forth. And that's what they do and always have been doing.
And so IHL determines what the university can and cannot do?
That's a fact.
They control the curriculum that they can teach?
They control the money, the curriculum, and the personnel.
So what does the black man control?
When and where?
As president of the university, what does he control?
He controls the length of time he stays in his job by doing what he is told. If he gets rebellious and gets bold and start looking out for what I call the independence of thought, he or she will not be there very long.
He controls the length of time that they can be in the position by doing what they're told.
That's right.
Wow.
That's the history of the South, the history of the United States, and the history of the world. Anytime you go against the people that put you in power and start impacting their contracts, their positions, the ability for them to put their kids in these positions of responsibility at these schools and so forth, when you go against that, you are gone. And most people that have high-powered jobs at least try to keep them anywhere from 2 to 7 years.
Well, Doc, I, as an independent black man, I love a high standard of living. I like the finer things. I like all of that. But there's something that I like more, and that is when I lay down, when I look in the mirror, that I'm okay with what I see. I'm okay with what I try to do, and I'm okay with my lack of things that I do not have. But I still am my own man.
Well, let me tell you what you won't have anything to worry about, Mr. Socrates. You will not have to worry about being a president of a black university. I tell you that. You don't have to worry about that.
Because you will not have an independent-minded Negro chosen to head an institution.
Not one that believes in fairness, one that is transparent, one that is accountable, and one that is going to hire qualified people that's qualified and certified to carry out their, what we call, job duties.
Well, Doc, it seems to me that we turn on ourselves. I understand that there was a vote of no confidence on the president some time back. Well, why do we turn on one another?
Well, we didn't turn on one another, Mr. Socrates. the alumni at Jackson State, the students, current students, didn't have anything to do with selecting the president. And I was at some of those meetings. Those presidents at Jackson State and some of these other universities are called by the supreme beings, the leadership of the state. And they are ushered down to these colleges and universities. They call a meeting and say, come up and look at the candidate for these positions of president at these colleges or universities. We are going to bring him or her to you. They meet with a few corporate leaders in the community. They meet with the Alumni Association president and a few of the top leaders in the college senate at the respective university. And they are told, these are your one or two candidates, and we are going to decide after you talk to him or her who your president is going to be. And these groups, and I've been in some of them, will get together, talk to the people, and say, well, we don't think we want him or her. And they will address this issue in writing, tell the board who it's going to be, and they say, well, that's wonderful. We have already decided. The last one, prior to Mr. Hudson, President Hudson being in office, they had a lunch. They talked to the people about who the president might be, said, we're going to make a decision. We know you all don't want this gentleman. And they, in an hour and a half later, they came out and announced at that meeting, that same day, that your president is President X.
Wow.
And I was sitting in the audience. The people, many of them broke down and started hollering and shouting and shedding tears, wiping their eyes. Many got up and walked out of the room, shaking, because they were so surprised that they didn't think about this overnight.
Wow. Black people don't run anything.
Nothing. And the only ability they have to survive, unless they start demanding that they are going to be independent, by starting off with self first, family second, and community third in areas where they're in the majority, and control 5 areas of activity, black folks or any folk won't ever have any leadership ability if others make all the decisions.
And I'm told that this is an absolute witch hunt, that this President Hudson has done absolutely nothing wrong.
Well, you don't have to do anything wrong, sir, to lose a position. You have to be criticized from within. And in order to keep a storm from rising, sometimes the opponents will say, well, we're going to let this water calm down a little bit. We're going to give this person a vacation and see how things are. We're going to throw another fish in the pond and see how they accept that. Then we'll decide, after due consideration, what the next step would be. And then they're going to watch the newspapers, the televisions, the radio shows, and the talk shows and see what the people are saying. And if they don't hear a lot of negative stuff, I'm not going to tell you publicly what the result would be, but I'll tell you in private.
Well, I just want them to hear, we believe digital, that too many black leaders are under attack. I think that our mayor, Chokwe Lumumba, has been under attack by white leadership, particularly that at the legislature, on the national media, being called incompetent and other things, and I think that's wrong. I think that's bad. I think
agree.
that's
It's
totally
definitely wrong. It's totally wrong.
I think that now we have President Hudson, who has done an outstanding job with the university, brought in Deion Sanders, moved the university forward. What is it that he possibly could have done that would have shaken your faith in his abilities to continue to move in the university forward?
Well, see, you got to understand, Mr. Socrates, when you get a person in what we call a big job, you already know his or her flaws. So when you interview them, and I've had a few chances in my younger days to interview people, you tell him or her, well, John, I heard, and we have some representation in writing that these are some of the things you've done in the past. but your good deeds supersede your past. So let's address these past issues. Tell me your version.
Do you do that before he's selected, or do you do that after the man has been in the job for two years?
No, you do that before you tell him he or she is going to get that job.
That's right.
That's right.
All that should have been cleared out before he became president.
Well, the thing is, sir, it's not cleared up. You don't want a perfect, rebellious person. You got to find someone with flaws to put in positions when you got to tell this person what they must do and when to do it and how to do it. You can't get a strong man or woman, one that has independence of thought in positions like that. You got to find a few flaws.
Well, apparently they found a few flaws. I want to send my prayers out to President Hudson, to him and his family, to fight your way through this, to stay strong, hold your head up. You know, you got to remember that even the story of Jesus, there are going to be people that are going to attempt to stone you. Your friends now are going to turn on you. There will be those who will call and bring up other things to try and demonize your name. And I know it's hard to fight IHL and fight the black community at the same time. I know that friendly fire can be more devastating than the opposition, and friendly fire is when you're being shot in the back by those that ought to be supporting black leadership. So President Hudson, I just want you to know that we're pulling for you and hoping that all of this will pass over and that you can continue doing the wonderful job that you have been doing at Jackson State University, a man that moved that university forward by leaps and bounds over where it has been. And now you got his head on the chopping block, Dr. Henderson. You and other black people have turned against the man.
Well, I have not turned against the man. I support what you said 100%. I do not expect to find a perfect person anywhere, but President Hudson has done a good job. And he has the ability to continue to do a good job, but he is not going to be in a position to please everyone. You have to make decisions, but you have to be very tactful when you make decisions when your job is on the line. That's why you have to be prepared to invest and pool your resources together so when you have these shortfalls in your life, you have enough what I call income and securities, and especially passive income, to keep you floating for about 3 good years while you're thinking about your next move.
Well, didn't President Hudson work at the university before he became president?
Yes, he most certainly did. He was working as the assistant, I'd say the chief assistant to the former president. I believe it's President
And so
Byron.
we have a long history with President Hudson.
That's right.
He's not someone that came from out of town that you didn't know anything about.
He was a former student there.
Former student of the university.
Went to law school. He's a very competent individual, very competent.
And during all of that tenure, if there were some blemishes in his past that would cause you to put the man on temporary paid leave, it should have been known long before now.
Well, if there are some, I guarantee you they were already known.
Then what is this all about then?
There is no blemish on any of our records that some people don't know about. But it's not strong enough to keep you from getting a position of responsibility. That's why I told you before, when you interview one, you talk about those shortfalls that you have heard about through your research before you selected the 3 people that you're going to hire one out of that group of 3.
Dr. Henderson, our time has expired. We're going to continue to have these conversations, and we're going to take our leaders and we're going to put them in full view. And we're going to either support them based upon the job that they have done, the qualifications that they had before they got the job, and we cannot let individuals be destroyed. Our leaders are too few Those individuals that have great leadership skills have moved on out of the community and left the rest of us here. And so we cannot afford to have African American leadership wherever it is throughout the entire world to be just destroyed. We got to prop it up where it's weak. We got to rebuild it if it falls, but we got to make absolutely certain that we continue to hold Black people in charge of what's going to happen in our lives. Dr. Henderson, I'll give you the last words.
Well, the last word is I do concur with what you're saying, and I must admit, though, I do like to move around from time to time. We are being very successful in our speaking tour. You know, we have a tour. So if anyone interested in hearing the real version of the real news, you all can call us at 601-201-1957. And some of the people from the Henderson Real News Forum will come and talk to you, church, school, or community organization. Call 601-201-1957 or email us at clu369@gmail.com. We need to know who you are, where you are, your dates, and who you're going to be training, and we'll come and help you be successful.
This has been Socrates Garrett Live here at We Believe Digital Broadcasting Studios. Until next week, stay safe. Good night.